doing the right thing by them, and you're giving them health insurance, and then you find out that what you're paying suddenly doubled over the course of 2 or 3 or 4 years, that's money that is directly out of your pocket that you could have been reinvesting in your business or hiring more workers. So us being able to control healthcare costs and giving small businesses the opportunity to pool with other small businesses and individuals around the country so that they have the same kind of leverage with insurance companies that the big guys have, that's an economic plan. That's part of our jobs growth. Last point I want to make. And that has to do with education. I was in Asia for a week, and we were mostly talking about trade and how we can increase U.S. exports. I'm tired of just them sending goods into the United States. I want to start sending goods from the United States out there. And I think there are a lot of opportunities for us to increase exports and increase jobs here in the United States without us spending any money. If we increased U.S. exports, our share of exports to Asia by just 5%, we would be creating hundreds of thousands, maybe 1 million, 2 million jobs just by opening up new markets. But I mentioned this yesterday at the Job Summit, and I want to mention it again today. I was having lunch with the president of South Korea, and that country has gone from dirt poverty and now is just booming. I mean, they are doing really well. And I asked him, what's your biggest challenge in terms of education? He said, my biggest challenge is the parents are just too demanding. He said, they're in my office. I've had to import foreign teachers, pay for foreign teachers to come teach English to Korean kids because all the parents there think that, their kids should be learning English when they're in first grade. Now, I tell that story to make the point that these folks are serious. They're not, their kids aren't spending a whole bunch of time playing video games or watching TV. They're out there, they're working. They're working in math, they're working in science, they're working in foreign languages. They are preparing themselves to compete. And so, one of the messages I have is that we are going to have to work just as hard. We can't take for granted that somehow, it's just owed to us that automatically we've got the strongest economy. We've got to make sure that each and every one of us are working as hard as we can and working smart in order to create the jobs of the future. All right? Okay, I've got time for 2 more questions. I think it's got to be a lady's turn. Right there. Yeah. How are you? Hold on. We'll get the mic so we can hear you. Hold on 1 second. Get the mic so we can hear you.
I'm Susan Kennedy with the Manufacturers Resource Center in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. We're one of the NIST MEP centers across the country, and I've been working with Joelle from your office. I have 9 manufacturers here with me. One was located right next to your metalworks that you visited this morning.
Terrific.
And they all want to know, dyingly, what you will do to loosen up the money for the small businesses and how they can compete more with the things they need to grow their businesses.
Now, you're referring specifically to credit and getting loans.
Credit, yes.
Is that the main priority that you're concerned about?
Credit, any of you? Now I have 9 people here. Anything else you want to add?
So she just kind of... this is like where they send the attractive person to hitchhike, right? Then the car stops and suddenly all the other guys come out of the woodwork.
She did hand me the microphone, so I'm going to take this opportunity and first thank you for coming to the Lehigh Valley and listening to us here.
Thanks.
Now, President Obama, I do represent one of the 10 CEOs of manufacturing companies here. Third generation, 59-year family business. And by the way, I was in Asia when you were. for other reasons. But that's a good segue into what I'd like to discuss, and that is, I wasn't going to Asia because I wanted to be there. I was going to Asia because I had to be there. You know, manufacturing in this country is changing. Companies need to move and change with it. Susan's point about the credit markets is really important. The bottom line is that when our companies have an opportunity, you know, years ago we would take a risk, we would go out, we'd buy the capital equipment, we'd add on to our buildings, we'd hire the necessary people to meet that demand. Today, our concern is, are the banks going to be there with us?
Right.
And we don't feel they are. What's going to change here in the near future to help your plan and get these people to work? Because we're willing. You know, those businesses are still here. Those families still talk about it. We need the support.
Good. Well, let me talk about the whole financial sector, because it really relates to what's happening in terms of jobs. You know, when we came in, and even before we came in, everybody remembers the Lehman crash and what happened right before the holiday season last year. The banks, the hedge funds, the whole financial system had leveraged itself so much. And leverage means that they took $1 and they turned it into $30, or at least they pretended that it was $30 or $40, and they would just, or $60. They were just going out lending like crazy, even though they knew that a lot of these loans really made no sense whatsoever. So they were lending. Part of what drove the housing boom was it used to be you had to save 20% to get money down to get your mortgage. Now suddenly people were putting no money down. It used to be that you'd get a fixed mortgage of 30 years and you'd have a steady payment. Now suddenly you only had to pay interest. You didn't have to pay principal. So that was just in the housing sector. But there were a whole bunch of other sectors of the economy where the same thing was happening. Now, not only were they giving loans to folks that probably in previous eras wouldn't have qualified for loans, but what was also happening was they were then taking those loans and then selling them. They were packaging them, chopping them up as securities, and those securities then would sell for what they weren't worth. They were being certified as grade A investments when they really weren't. So there was just a lot of funny business going on Wall Street. And everybody was participating up and down the line because they were all making a lot of money. And frankly, Washington wasn't doing a very good job regulating. Now, we saw the consequences of this once everybody realized that a lot of this stuff was bogus, that there was no value beneath a lot of these bank loans.